Can you tell me about your book, The Curse of the High IQ?
Oh, friend of mine, we were having a conversation and we were talking about how we never thought that we were all that smart in school, right? I was like a solid C minus D plus student, and then we went to college. We got really good grades, and he was pointing out like, yeah, he got his IQ tested, and he never thought of himself as that smart, but he was like a 140 something. He's up there. And I was tested between like 131 to 139, somewhere in the 130s. He says, that means like we're freakishly rare. Like there's just, your top 2 or 1% or something like that. I have to look at the Bell distribution curve. And it wasn't until, and I had a math and stats, finance background, I know, but then I looked at the Z-score tables and the charts. I'm like, wait a minute, all these other people are, quote, dumber than me. And it was, I don't know why, but seeing the tail, I was like, wait a minute, there's a tremendous inefficiency here. Like I wasn't aware how smart I was. Neither was my buddy. I don't think most people are, because it's arrogant and conceited. Like, oh, I'm so smart. Like that, you're kind of ashamed. You shouldn't do that. And you shouldn't. It's too arrogant and cocky. But at the end of the day, there's the test. And then I started thinking about economies, like your transportation system or the electrical grid. Things are made for the masses. They're not made for the minority, because you can't have a highway system that only helps people named Jim. All right, it's not going to work out. And I'm like, were there other instances where there are inefficiencies, just as mentally impaired people, like let's say you're legit mentally retarded, you're like 68 IQ, they obviously have huge hurdles. Would there not be other hurdles of a different variety that super intelligent people face because they're divergent? And when I went and did the research, yeah, obviously there's a ton. There's social ramifications, romantic ramifications, career and education is probably the hardest one, unless you get into a PhD program and NASA and like super high intelligent like type of research. So you would, and the short version of that is, society cannot operate on excellence. It needs to operate on performance in some key areas. And so because you need to conform, not perform, smart people run into a bunch of social, financial, career, all these other type of hurdles that they may not be aware of. And so a classic example is like me. I thought I was dumb because I didn't get good grades. Because that's what and I come to find out, like, no, school sucks. It's a fucking prison. And truly intelligent kids, they just die in that environment.
Truly intelligent kids die in the education program.
Right. I mean, now if you get into like an accelerated program, or if you have like a gifted and even gifted and talented, it was just like, no, take the kid who's in the 2nd grade and put him in the 5th. Get him there or her there, because that's the level that they're operating at. And they're not going to be bored because it's the same thing. They understand the concepts. The average kid might need.
So were you just bored?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, God. It was horrible. Just bored out of your mind. Yeah. And then you don't have any energy. You
do it because, but then wouldn't you get good grades?
I got good tests. Do you remember the standardized tests?
You didn't do homework.
I didn't do homework. School was horrible. But when you sat me down in front of those standardized tests that they make all the kids take, I'd ace all the math, and then the English and history, I just like C- work again, because it's not really something you test. It's just, did you memorize dates? Math was logic, intelligence, reasoning, follow through, and all that other stuff. So, but you don't know that. You're like, well, my parents would get help. Oh my God, look, you did so. And then they use it. You could try better in school. It's like, no, the math is easy. Doing good in school has nothing to do with intelligence or effort. Well, I mean, it does have to do with effort too. But for a smart kid that's stuck at the glacial speed at their elementary school teachers and intellectual capacity, like.
So they should have put you in that makes sense. But don't they have cases where they let them skip a grade or something?
Yeah, but you got to be a straight A student. See, you got to get good grades. You can't just skip grades.
The education system, it went more female in a way. Because women tend to show up on time and they tend to do
conformance, not performance.
And they do more of the homework stuff. So I heard it switched in the 80s or around there.
Maybe.
I could be off by like 10 years or something, but And it benefited women more because it included things that don't really matter, like homework and attendance.
Yeah, but did it benefit girls more? I mean, good. You're really good at school. The real world is in school.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the education system.
Right. Girls, I think, still to this day get better scores than men.
Yeah, they do.
Or boys. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
And they added in like writing to the ACT.
Yeah. Okay. Good. You wrote really well. You're a really good obeyer. Congratulations. You follow the rules. That's great.
Yeah.
You don't annoy your teacher. Boys are not cut out that way. Yeah.
Right.
But then, and this isn't to separate between men and women, but intelligent girls are going to face the same thing. If they're really smart, they're going to get bored too. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't written for men or women, but just smart people in general. I wonder why they don't
let you specialize in things you're interested in early on. I don't know how you feel about that, but personally, like I think it would. In Europe, I know they let you, if you're really good at like say math at like 12, you can start to like specialize in math from like a younger age. Mm-hmm. Me, like I really liked history, so like I don't know that route, but I don't know. Do you think that would be helpful or no?
Yeah,
you need like basics.
Yes, you need to stop it with this. You're what age? You go to this grade. No.
Yeah.
You're what skill level? The goal should be to get the smart kids out as quickly as possible.
Right.
Almost even self-study. Like, can you learn this on YouTube? Go at home. Fine. Boom. You're done. Frankly, we don't need high school. Then you have extra resources. Mm-hmm. You could save money and still have some extra resources for kids who actually need it, who are not as smart, who are a little bit slower, or just have some kind of learning issue or problem. And so all you're doing is you're holding the smart kids hostage. The dumb kids aren't having a grand time either themselves. They might feel a little bit bad because Jimmy got better grades and they keep getting bad grades or something like that. So, but it really is, you could say, okay, can you test, which correlates with intelligence, but isn't necessarily that. Can we get you out of here? And by the end of your 8th grade, give you a skill where you're like, okay, you go into the trades, or maybe you look at college, become an accountant or engineer. There's no reason we can't be shipping kids off 14, 15 years old into college nowadays. And then, okay, we got some kids who, if they don't learn a basic skill, they're going to be on the welfare state or drag on society. So let's focus on them. So yes, there is ways, but you need parents who are very active. There was an article, a young gal in Alabama, 17, and she got her master's degree. Her old man was on her, like married family. He's like, and because you just don't do that as a kid. You have to have parents pushing you. And so her folks.
Was she homeschooled?
I don't know.
How did that happen?
Well, she had to be homeschooled at a little bit because, okay, let's say you're in school, but how do you get your college course and college credits? So there had to be some homeschooling going on. But now she's obviously very high IQ and she's an exception. Mm-hmm. But why don't we see that more often? There are kids out there with IQs 130 plus that could be out with a college degree by 17 and completely employable. But the reason we don't do that, one, and not to sound too cynical, most parents don't love their kids that much to take that much of vested interest in them. Mm-hmm. They send kids to daycare because that's what the public schools largely are. Mommy needs to work. Daddy needs to work. We need an SUV. You need to go to the school, and maybe we help with your homework or not. There's that. And the teachers are not exceptional people. They're very average. They're very common. They chose teaching generally because they're lazy and they want to have summers off. And that work ethic shows. They're not going to, your average 3rd grade teacher does not have the intelligence or the work ethic to identify, take, mold, and send a wunderkind on the right track. They got their criteria, they got the curriculum. It's largely up to the parents to say, yeah, my kid's smarter than that. We're getting them out of there and send him down that track. But the motives and the incentives are all wrong. Parents want free daycare. Teachers want an easy check with summers off. Kids suffer more or less.
My sister's the one that's watching all these kids. She's right out of high school.
Yeah.
They always say that a mother is like the hardest job on the planet. And I'm not saying it's easy, but my sister's able to do it with no skills right out of high school. So
yeah, no, it's
she
not.
She watches like 10 of your kids at a time.
Yeah,
so.
Well, You know, I
Sends
don't
me
know.
selfies with them, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I've had a bunch of kids hanging around. I'm like, just do what as I say. You know, it doesn't seem that hard to me, but you know,
Okay, but the incentive structures are off. And so the challenges that really smart people get, especially boys, because they're nonconformant, is they get bored.
right,
And then they're not rewarded in the school system, which really it should all be testing now that I think about it. Like what's the point of having like extra like attendance scores?